Judgment, it's something we all face at various points in our lives, but never so much during our student years. Good morning everyone. Today I am going to talk about breaking the so-called exam model and finding new ways to assess. Looking back to my own educational journey, I can't help but reflect on the moment where I felt judged, not just for my knowledge, but for my ability to recall the knowledge under pressure. Growing up in an Indian family, education was everything, like many Asian families. But here's the kicker. It wasn't about what you truly understood. It was about what you could memorize and write it on a paper in few hours. How many of you have felt this pressure too? That feeling of being evaluated not on your depth of understanding, but on how well you could perform under intense conditions. I remember my own school days vividly. It was final exam season. I was sitting in the exam hall, a bundle of nerves but determined to perform well. During the exam, I borrowed a few answers from my friend's sheet. Yes, I copied. And here's the irony. I scored higher than my friend whose answers I copied. What to do? Let that sink in for a second. Did I really know more than my friend? Or was it simply that I could express the information better in a polished, exam-friendly format? I think the answer is clear. And yet, my higher grades was seen as an indicator of great knowledge. Was it true? This incident, among others, stayed with me as I transitioned from being a student to being a teacher. It forced me to ask some tough questions. How do we really assess learning? How do we evaluate students in a way that reflects true understanding, not just who performs better under pressure? Let me share another story that shaped my perspective. A few years ago, I was in an interview. They asked me a question about India's former president. You might think, what's a big deal in that? It was an easy question. But for me, I knew the answer, but instead of recalling Pratibha Patil, I was just recalling Patil and Patil. And you know, I kept thinking about Smita Patil, the Bollywood actress. The pressure made the correct answer slip through my mind. The interviews lightly assumed I didn't know the facts. But was that the case? Not at all. I knew the answers, but in that moment of stress, my brain betrayed me. And this is exactly what happens to the students in traditional exam. Consider my university classmate, Neha. She was a class topper, an absolute genius with an encyclopedic knowledge of literature. Yet, in every exam season, she would be at the doctor's office battling stress-induced health issues. I still remember our final exam of Masters of English. Neha sat next to me, flipping through the pages of her exam booklet, her hands trembling, her eyes red with the panic. She blanked out entirely. Despite knowing the material better than most of us, her mind froze. Watching her crumble was heartbreaking. Does that moment of fear define her ability or knowledge? Absolutely not. And yet, our system punishes students like her for not being able to perform under pressure. So here's the question. Is this really how we should evaluate learning? Can we claim to assess students' true understanding when our methods reward memorization and punish anxiety? It's time to move beyond this antiquated approach. We need to rethink about our methods of assessments. We need to break away from these rigid models of summative assessments As Albert Einstein famously said, everybody is a genius. But if you think fish can climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And that's what our traditional exams do. They force every student, no matter their strengths or learning styles, to perform in the same way, often leading them to believe they are inadequate. So instead of judging students on how well they can recall facts, what if assessments on their ability to think critically, to problem solve, and to be creative? Imagine a classroom where students are evaluated on real-world skills, not just their ability to cram information for a test. There are certain alternative methods to do assessments for the students, like project-based assessments. One alternative is project-based. Imagine instead of a history exam, students could work on a long-term project where they research, analyze, and create a documentary on a historical event. Not only would they need to demonstrate their understanding skills that are much more valuable in the real world than being able to memorize dates and facts. Another method is to make portfolios. Over the course of a semester, students could compile portfolio showcasing their progress, like essays, videos, artworks, and reflections. This would allow them to demonstrate their growth over the time, rather than being judged on the high-pressure day. Think of it like an artist's portfolio. Each piece tells part of a story and contributes to a broader picture of their abilities. Coming to next method of assessment, that is peer review and collaboration. Why not encourage more peer review and collaboration in literature classes? Students could critique each other's essay and analyze, pushing them to engage more deeply with the material. Peer assessment helps students develop critical thinking skills and see learning as a collaborative process rather than just a competition for the highest grade. Coming to the real world problem solving, it's a one step further. Why not replace exams with real world problem solving assessments? Like, for example, in science classes, students could be tasked with developing a solution for real world problems like reducing plastic waste or improving water conservation. This method not only assesses their knowledge of scientific principles but also their ability to apply that knowledge to the real world challenges. Coming to the next method that could be applied, that is creative expression. We could introduce a creative assessment where the students could create podcast, like we are doing, write a short story, or even perform a skit that demonstrates their understanding of the material. By allowing or multiple models of expression, we would give students the opportunity to communicate their knowledge in ways that align with their strengths rather than forcing everyone to fit into the same mold. It's time to stop judging students based solely on their performance during a 3-hour exam. Education is about preparing students for life, not just for exams. Creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving, these are the skills that matter in today's complex, ever-changing world. So I leave you with the question, what can we as an educators do to change the way we assess learning? How can we stop judging students by outdated standards that start understanding their potential in more holistic, meaningful way? If we can shift our focus, we will find that we are not just teachers, we are cultivators of the next generation of thinkers, creators, and innovators. Let's be more judicious in how we assess, let's judge, and let's judge less